Well, I do appreciate everyone taking out some time here on a Friday to let us talk about InvGate assets. We're certainly now pretty much dialed in and certainly familiar with InvGate Service Desk. The one thing that I did want to make sure to let you guys know is that after we look at InvGate assets kind of from 30,000 feet, then we'll also see how that integration comes into play with the ticketing system with InvGate Service Desk. So you'll get that full picture of the entire suite of the InvGate offerings. So we're going to do those. We're going to spend this most of the session here diving right into assets. And again, this is not going to be a completely scripted demonstration of the solution. I may jump here or there and forget to show you this and come back. So it's going to be organic like most of the sessions that I do. So if you've got questions, just kind of chime in whenever and we'll address them. Not a problem at all. But we'll certainly try to look at it from stem to stern. But a little bit kind of a high level about what we're actually going to be seeing today about InvGate assets is what it actually is. Well, it's an all-in-one IT asset management tool. It's going to cover discovering. Let's see if I've got my. Let me bring out one of my little snazzy tools here. All right. All right, there we go. So InvGate Assets is going to do automatic discovery of your workstations and your servers through an agent-based reporting discovery. And we've got agents available for Windows Server, even if you've got any rogue Macs running around the place. I can pick on them because I'm on one. And as well as most flavors of Linux or Linux, tomato. But we'll see maybe a little bit more about that and where those agents reside and how to deploy them. It's very, very simple. You can simply put it out in your GPO, in your Active Directory, and as people log in, they'll pick it up as part of policy. So not a problem there. We'll also be having a quick peek at network discovery. So that's another type of discovery that we have within InvGate Assets. So this is going to encompass network scanning and bringing in all of your network printers, routers, switches, firewalls, IP phones, basically kind of anything with an IP address, but no hard drive. So we're going to bring those into the system. And I think it's probably noteworthy here to mention too, from a licensing perspective, we do not require licenses for anything that is brought in through network discovery. And we've also got, yes, please.
Uh, I'm sorry, I just want to make sure, are you expecting that the screen is changing in GoToMeeting?
Can you see my mouse moving at all?
Yes. Yes.
And it just was a little bit of a screenshot change here?
I see that now. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
nothing drastic. This is
Okay.
more or less is my what would it be called? Just my script, if you will, to make sure that I speak to all of these particular items.
No problem. No problem.
Absolutely. um, so it's also worth noting that you can also inject any other assets that you want, maybe non-IT assets. I mean, you could put in if you want to keep your hands around the number of desks and cubicle walls and chairs or cupcakes, whatever you want to track in the system, you'll be able to manually inject those into the system as well. And there's no licensing fees for those either. So just kind of going down the list of the high level features, again, we're going to deep dive on all of these, of course. There is built-in remote desktop control. So it is, you'll be able to initiate a remote desktop control, kind of the magic mouse type of desktop control versus logging in through some administrative account. You'll actually get to control that end user's workstation. Again, that also includes Macs as well. And this will be an attended or invitation only style remote control session. Will actually prompt that end user to allow us to do that remote control session. We do have agents available as well for an unattended remote control session if that's a requirement as well. Software deployment, we're going to have a peek at that as well. So you're going to be able to deploy software out to your workstations and servers. Something called software metering, which is quite nice. Software metering is going to be able to report back to you how much utilization is being placed on particular pieces of software. So if you've got software on a particular workstation that someone hasn't used in 180 days, maybe you want to reallocate that software license so that you don't have to buy another one. So we'll definitely talk more about licensing and software as well. You're going to be able to capture and report on the different financials and the life cycle of your different assets that are out there. We've got advanced reporting, which we'll dive into as well, so you can actually really dive into all of the data that's captured there. There's and that's just it too. What we're going to also see is we're going to see that there's really many ways to get to information that you want. It's not just the yellow brick road. There's other roads to Emerald City, and you're going to see that throughout the demonstration of InvGate assets for sure. And then in license management, we're going to see how you can put in your software license contracts in the system, and then we're going to tell you where those deltas might be and show you where those those three versions of Photoshop are being pirated. Jokes aside, vendors, and this obviously comes into a big play in your guys' organization, but it's becoming very easy for vendors to identify pirated licenses. So we try to keep your head around all that and stay on top of it, make sure there's lots of compliancy going on. And then change management, we're going to see how um, changes to hardware and software can impact the organization, and then we can see how we can be alerted and try to prevent those from happening. And we'll talk about a little bit of endpoint security, so that'll certainly be of interest as well to you folks. But enough of that. That's almost too PowerPoint-ish for me. Let's dive into the product itself. So I'll just log out for a second here. The login itself is going to be tied to Active Directory again for your authentication, so you don't have to remember yet another password. And of course, not everyone from within your Active Directory is going to have access to this. This is going to be a very specific set of user groups who are going to want to be in here. So we're going to go ahead and log in as an administrator so that we can kind of get our head around everything. And everything looks okay here. Is the resolution okay? Do I need to bump that up, or is it quasi-legible?
If you can make that a little bit larger, I think that would be helpful.
I'll see what I can do here without not making too many challenges. Okay, did that actually do anything on your end?
No, maybe we'll try just ours. Hold on.
And it very well may be where you can't adjust it after the fact with GoToMeeting.
That's better now. Yeah, that's good.
And there's not going to be too terribly much reading that's going to need to go on. Uh, so it shouldn't be too much of a problem as long as it's not like looking through a peephole at everything here. I think we'll be okay.
Yeah, this is good.
Okay. So the first thing that we're looking at here is just the InvGate assets dashboard.
Okay.
So this is, yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Before you get started, I had a licensing question. So you showed a bunch of stuff before we got to the screen. How is everything licensed? Is it all or nothing, or is it piecemeal? How does that work?
From licensing our product, sorry, it can get confusing because we do software licensing within the system, but you're speaking to licensing of our product itself?
Yeah, we are talking about your asset management piece, that you offer.
Yes.
And you showed several different pieces of functionality, like
it's all included.
Everything is included.
Everything's included. The only licensing that comes into play is the number of workstations and servers, and that's going to be both physical and virtual, because we do software. See, this is where it gets confusing. we could, because we report on your licensings of software on your servers. Of course, your virtuals, the one physical box may be running, X number of Office on them or something like that. So yeah, it's based on the number of workstations and the number of servers, both physical and virtual. That's the only fees and licensing associated with it. Everything else that we see comes with it. There's no piecemeal modules.
Okay, great, thanks.
Excellent. So the first area that we're going to take a look at here is going to be just a typical kind of dashboard session. So this is where we're going to present information. I'm just going to kind of scroll down to give us a little real estate. This is going to kind of give you that view from 30,000 across the entire network. So this is where we can see a visual representation of the different operating systems that we have out there running. And we can see that there are nearly 700 workstations running XP. That's a little bit outdated, but my opinion was probably the strongest Windows OS of its time. But I digress. But we can see again that landscape of what operating systems we've got going on out there. And then also, as you'll see next to it, we can see what our RAM looks like out there. So we could do maybe some proactive upgrading before we start to run into problems. That's obviously some low RAM. So you could actually kind of prevent forest fires, right, instead of fight them. And then you also get to see the different families of assets that are out here. The different communication devices versus energy supplies, network devices, peripherals, shared devices. Of course, workstations are probably going to be the largest number. So if this pie piece is right here a little bit too small for your liking, you just click on workstation. It removes workstation from that particular view so that you can kind of dive into what your other families of assets look like. Now, as we kind of look down a little bit below here, this is something that's really slick within InvGate, and it's going to be your different alarms. Now, we've just kind of set these up as examples. Again, it's going to be all point and click configuration, but we've got some hardware alarms sitting here so that we can identify if we've got missing RAM. If somebody has taken a stick of RAM from a particular workstation, we're going to get notified about that. And we're going to get emails sent in. We could actually send those into the ticketing system if we wanted to so that they become actionable items. And we can also set up alarms for people who maybe think they're doing kind of God's work and add RAM to their workstation, but they don't know anything about clock speed and whatnot. So it could actually cause more bad than good. So we can certainly get alarms on that as well. And let me see my pointer. Let me get my pointer back here. I closed it by accident. So we've also got our software alarms. So this is where you're going to be able to receive notifications about any software that has come onto your blacklist. So if you've got your predefined list of software that you do not want on your workstations, we're going to get notifications about that. But the other beautiful thing about InvGate is that you could actually set up tasks so that all blacklisted software is automatically removed from a range of workstations. So you can certainly do that. And you get notifications even if you've got items that are just on a watch list. It's software that maybe you only want going out to a limited amount of folks and you don't want a ton of them getting installed. You can create a watch list as well. And as you can also see here, as you've defined different software licenses that require different software packages that require licensing, you can get notified when one of your workstations has reported back to the system that that type of software has been now installed on that workstation. You get notification to make sure that you're still staying within compliancy. Kind of some of the general alarms, of course, when a new workstation comes on, if you want to get notified about that, you certainly could. But more importantly, you can actually get notifications when particular software licenses are getting ready to expire, or whether they're about to expire or if they have expired, or if you need to renew a support contract with that particular software license. You can get information about when workstations IP addresses change. So I'd imagine that's really helpful if you want to set up, a notification, an alarm for a range of servers that, of course, should have a static IP address. Well, if those ever change, and sometimes they've been known to do that, then you want to get notifications of that so that you can make sure that everything stays up and running. So that's kind of a little bit about just the general dashboarding, if you will. But from here, we're going to kind of look at that ease of navigation throughout the system. Did I have a question there? Nope. All right. So ease of navigation is literally as easy as just clicking anywhere, basically in the system. So we can just highlight and click, and we can see a list of almost 700 workstations that are running XP. And we're going to get some general information about it, the computer name and the last logged in user, OS service packs, so on and so forth. But what we're really wanting to do is actually deep dive into one of these particular workstations. Again, we're just in a lone workstation itself. Some of the information that we're going to be able to see here is the hardware information, software information, any alarms that are associated with it, financials, other hardware that's linked or associated with it, and then any software licensing that is applicable to this workstation. And then we're going to see how we can actually deploy software to a particular workstation as well. So we can see at a glance here, we can see the manufacturer, we can see this location. This is dynamically updated in the system. We can see RAM information. We can get more detailed information about the RAM. We can see the different, this one has 2 banks and 1 gig per slot. And we can see who owns this particular workstation. But we can also see down here who is the last person to log into it. Just because they own it doesn't necessarily mean they were the last person to log into it. CPU details, again, it's just a wealth of knowledge about this workstation, how the hard drive's partitioned, as well as how much free space there is on it. That's another good alert to have notified to, again, kind of do the Smokey the Bear, prevent forest fires rather than put them out. If a hard drive reaches 95% capacity, let's go ahead and get notified of that, and then we can go out and ask that person to remove the movies from their iTunes library and free up some space. We can see all the associated printers that are with it, networking information. If you needed to, grab the MAC address for any particular reason, you could do that. And then we can see operating system information and see if what the latest service pack is on it, so on and so forth. But a couple of other really slick things that you can do straight out of here before we kind of dive into some of these other tabs is now we can fire up a remote desktop control session. So straight out of this workstation, we need to go ahead and get our hands dirty and work on that particular workstation. We can start up that remote session. And that remote session is going to be all browser based. It's going to also log who initiated that particular remote control session, what parties were involved on that workstation, and it's also going to capture the length of that remote control session as well. So you've got that for all of your auditing purposes. We can schedule our agent to report back basically on any kind of frequency that you want. But if you're looking at this workstation where hey, it's been offline for a while or something to that effect, and you don't feel like the data is current, you can actually click here, and on demand it will reach out and grab all that latest information. It takes about 5 seconds. You can grab that latest information about that workstation just to make sure you got everything current. Now, from a kind of a security side of things, if you've got any, I don't know, maybe you might have a few sensitive workstations around there, you can actually block USB ports on those workstations. So what that's going to do is also prevent any thumb drives from being inserted into those workstations. So we'll see, it's a little bit of a spoiler, but we'll also see later on where you can set up tasks in the system. So for this range of IPs, I want every night I want to re I guess that would be would that be the right word? Reblock all USB ports. So just to ensure that these USB ports are actually locked down.
Hey Terry, question about that.
Sure.
Does the software have the ability to block certain types of devices and not everything?
Correct. So it's going to allow your mouse and your keyboard to still work just fine, and probably your coffee mug warmer or whatever, all kind of crazy things you can do with USBs these days. It's primarily going to be centered around um, oh, what the word? What is the word? When a hard drive mounting, when something's trying to mount against it.
Okay, but there isn't a way to say that I want to allow certain types of USB drives but not others.
I'm not 100% sure, but what I'll do is I'm going to get my notebook here. I'll jot that down and come back to you. OIG types. Okay. I'll park and lot that one and come back to you. Now, this workstation, what we can also do is we can control and send this particular workstation into a repair status so that we can actually run reports and have visibility into when this particular workstation's been worked on. So we can give it a description and potentially give it a vendor that that maybe it's been sent off to, and then give it an estimated solution date. But again, just to put that workstation into a particular repair status. We'll see how that comes into play and why that's useful as well in just a minute. From the software side of things, we're going to be able to see every piece of software that's installed on this particular workstation. And we can even see we've got Microsoft Office, we got Visio on here, and we've got more detailed information. We can see that it's on our watch list. Maybe it's on our watch list because it requires a license. But we can also see that this software has not been used within 90 days. So we can take that into play and maybe do some license allocation. Now, what we can also see is all of the updates that have been, all the hot fixes and security fixes that have taken place on this particular workstation. But more importantly, we can actually see which ones are pending, which updates have not been installed on this particular workstation. And the beauty is too, is if this is one that's of importance, I can click on it and then I can see all of those workstations. I can see that there's roughly 230 workstations that do not have this update. Again, there's multiple ways to report on this. Like I said, it's there's more than just the yellow brick road, but that's just to kind of show you that is one way that you can approach that particular data set and to get your head around it as well.
Terry, how do you get the list of the latest patches, and for what software do you get that patch list?
It's all magic, from what I've been told. No, I'm kidding. It's going to be through. It's going to be WMI. It's going to be grab that from what the Windows is reporting back. So it'd be like going onto the Windows machine and it reporting back what updates are available from your Windows updates panel.
Okay, but so maybe I wasn't clear. How does InvGate know what patches are missing? What list are you comparing that against?
To be quite honest, I honestly do not know. We're pulling that. The agent on the machine is obtaining that information based on what Windows is reporting as missing pending updates from the system. Again, it's been a while since I've been on a Windows machine, to be quite honest.
Yeah, so Windows doesn't do that, right? Windows doesn't say that I have this patch is missing. Give me this patch. It doesn't do that.
But at least back when I was utilizing it, it would certainly tell me that there were updates available that
Yeah, no,
changed.
yeah, it does not Not anymore. Must have been a long time ago. Windows doesn't work like that anymore.
Hmm. Well, I guess it really is magic. I'll certainly find out. Let me jot
Okay.
that down as well.
And also other software was on that missing list. For example, Adobe. I thought I saw an Adobe update on there. So just curious how InvGate knows that that piece of software or patch has not been installed on a particular device.
Okay, got that as well. Let's go back to here. Software metering. This is where we can identify how frequently or infrequently software is being utilized on this particular workstation. Again, possibly for software reallocation. So most, we could see our rarely used or least used pieces of software, and then we can have a peek at those and see if those are something that we want to reallocate or remove. Maybe it's become legacy software that we want to remove from a particular from. It could be a whole range of workstations. We'll see how we can see that across multiple workstations as well. Now, the alarms. This is going to be basically it's going to provide you the whole audit and life cycle of this particular asset. So everything that's ever happened to this particular asset is being captured along the way. So we can actually see in this case when it. Let me move my little toolbar so I can get my real estate back. Come on over to the other monitor. There you go. When it was first initially discovered as a new workstation, we can see when blacklisted software was removed and what it was. We can see when RAM was added to this particular workstation. There was a gig, we added another gig to it. And we can see when it changed locations. It got its first location added and its first user was added here. And we can see when warranty information, when we had an alert that said tell me when the warranty was about to expire, so on and so forth. We can see when it started in a repair status, when it ended in a repair status. Again, really any alarm that you possibly want about this workstation is going to be there. And then, of course, the beautiful thing is that you can filter it down. So what you can do is maybe if you're wanting to replace a particular workstation rather than repair it, you can actually build a data-backed proposal to management to say, look, we've had this workstation, and this is just how many times it's been sent into a repair status in the last X amount of time. I think it would be more beneficial for us to replace this particular workstation rather than repair it. It's becoming costly. But again, you can filter this data down however you want to do it. Some of the financials information that's going to be available here about this particular workstation. Its inventory number, the date it was acquired, its invoice purchase date, what departments it's in, what the company probably isn't going to come into play, but what cost center it was built out of. In this particular case, it looks like we're leasing it. We've got a price. If you need to bring in depreciation into the mix, you can certainly do that. When the warranty is going to expire, so on and so forth. It's good information. If you needed to upload any new documents to this particular, not to the workstation itself, but to its record. So if you needed to upload a PO or a receipt of some sort, or manuals or whatever it may be, you can certainly do that as well. The other hardware, this is where you're going to find any other assets that might be associated with this particular workstation. We can see that there's a mobile phone associated with it, a couple of IP phones, and a PDA. Whoever says PDA anymore, but there is a PDA associated with it. And from a licensing perspective, we can see the different software packages that are on this particular workstation that are associated and require a license. So we can see that. But the wonderful thing as well is that we can actually see all of the unlicensed software that might be on here. We can see how it's used and what group it's associated with, and then we can investigate whether this should be on this particular machine or if it should not. Now, one of the other wonderful things that you can do here as well is you can actually deploy software to a particular workstation. So you can actually push out an MSI file or an exe or a bat or a script of some sort. So you can actually just push out this Office service pack with a simple click here. That's going to be an unattended installation. And in the same breath, you're going to be able to uninstall software. So from just a one-off perspective, again, you could set up a task that does a complete removal of some legacy software package that you're wanting to get off of an entire range of IP addresses. Then you could also set that up as well. But just from a one-off, you could certainly come in here and just remove a particular piece of software. They will just disappear. The end user is unaware that it's being done. It's not done through the remote desktop control. It's an unattended removal. Right. So what we'll do is we'll show you a little bit more about kind of navigating around the system itself. So if I was to go back to kind of the software tab here, I can see again all the software that's on here, and I can see this WinRAR's on here. We've got it on our watch list. It requires a license. It's not being used much, but if I wanted to see what other workstations have WinRAR running on it, I can simply do that. I can simply click on it, and then I can go into a particular workstation if I wanted to, and look again at that particular detail. But just to kind of show you the ease of navigation. Now, if I'm looking at this and going, oh, four megs, we're kind of upgrading everything to 8 or better. I can click on that, and now I can see that I've got the 42 workstations that have just the 4 gig of RAM on it. I could export this if I needed to, and then we could go to work on upgrading those. But I could also even just click on the Pentium 4s. I can see all the Pentium 4s in here. So again, navigating around the data is very, very, very simple. But now what we also do see across the top now is different, basically just different simple kind of almost canned reports, if you will. If you just want to see all your workstations and navigate it from there, you can do it by, to have a look at the different locations that are on here and what workstations are associated with them and that IP range that defines it. But then you can also have a look at the different life cycle. So we can see all workstations that are actively in a repair status. So we could have a quick look at that. So you can create your different life cycles of the different stages throughout the life cycle of an asset. You'll be able to see that as well. And then from the asset side of things, if you want to get another summary and look into the data that we've got discovered there, we can certainly look at it through a couple of different lenses. So we just got a summary of all assets. Or if we want to just see all of the network discovered assets, again, this is going to be your printers, your firewalls, your routers. We can actually see them here, firewalls and routers and access points. Those are going to be in here. And the different hardware side of things, we've got, we can see it by vendor, if you will, by hardware brand. So again, energy supplies, we can see the different power sources and stabilizers, and it really approaches data from any angle that you want. But the other thing that you can do from here too is if you just wanted to, you can do some simple searches as well. So if we want to have a look at, maybe we have somebody named Emma Miller, and she's leaving the organization, and we need to make sure that we get all of those associated assets back into our storage area. We can literally just key in her name, and now we can see the 3 workstations that are associated with her. I can click on the asset side here, and then I can see that she's got a printer and IP phone and a monitor as well. So we can make that checklist, make sure we get all of those components back into storage so that we can reallocate them out somewhere else. So let's have a quick peek around software. Again, you can just do a quick glance at all of the different software that is here and available and been discovered through all of your different workstations on your network. Again, we'll find out exactly what magic is doing this, but we'll find all of the missing updates that are there. Again, you can find, if there's a particular one that you want to approach, you can actually see how many workstations there are. And these are live links, of course, so you can click on those and get to that list of workstations and start to go to work on getting that updated. We also do the software metering as we saw for just that one workstation. We're going to see that across the entire network as well. So we can certainly see where our rarely used software is, what our unlicensed software is, and then the different software across our different lists that we've created as well. All right, so kind of from that software side of things, we've got, again, we saw this list here. We've got McAfee antivirus, and like I said, we can click on the 791, and we can see those particular workstations. And we can also see what version they're on. And this is, again, just a simple way. There's multiple ways to approach this. But if I just kind of sorted this by version, it sorted it backwards. I can actually see now that there's this one workstation that is not up to snuff on the current version. Again, there could be alarms around this. But I click on it once, and I go into this workstation. I click on software deployment. That's 2 clicks. And now with 3 clicks, I can actually install that latest version of McAfee antivirus. So with just 3 clicks, we were able to actually get in there and get that thing updated. So back here on software, you're going to be able to categorize your software in those different lists, if you will, that white list, a watch list, and a black list, to make sure that you've got your head around what pieces of software you want and don't want on your workstations. And you're also going to be able to kind of put those into associate software to different groups of folks as well. So again, if you could, these are probably not applicable, but you can certainly make certain groups so that you can say only this group can have Photoshop and only this group should have this and that, and then we can run the reports to find if there's any deltas at all out there on that. So what we'll do is we'll also have a peek at the licensing side of things. So out here is where we're going to have what contracts, what licenses we actually own, and these different contracts or licenses the licensing can be keys, they can be concurrent users, named users, they can be based on cal, they can be based on number of CPU, if that's how your licensing contract works. And once you've built those into the system, then we'll be able to run the licensing reports against the deltas of what you've told us the organization owns versus what we found out in the field. Okay, so we've got a nice graphical representation of this. Of course, it's click-throughable, if that's a word, but we can see the different licenses of this is going to show us a list of licenses we still have available, okay, that are available to be distributed and owned by a particular workstation. And then again, you can see these visuals around licensed software, unlicensed, consumed and unconsumed licenses. But more importantly, what we'd want to do is we'll go have a peek here. I think we'll actually look at, is it this one? Yep, I think it is. We're going to have a peek at, there it is. This is a license utilization report. We can see we've got Microsoft Office Professional Edition 2003. We can see that we have discovered, or there's a requirement. I'll scroll up to let you see kind of what these headers were again. Required, consumed, what you've got left to dole out, and then your non-licensed software. No need to completely memorize it, but I just wanted to show you that. And we'll go back and have a look at this Microsoft Office Professional Edition 2003. We've discovered that there were 713 versions of this running out there. And we can see the different editions, if you will, that roll up into different software contracts. So each of these contracts, we've got a 2003 enterprise, a 2007 professional. This particular contract allows us to do what do they call it? Downgrades. So it allows us to have the 2003 running. So now we can see actually how many have been consumed out there. There's 30 consumed, 179 consumed for this contract, 9 for this contract, and we still have 6 available licenses for this particular contract. But what we've seen is in the end, we're actually out of compliance by 400, almost 500 licenses. And these licenses don't come cheap, so we either need to figure out what's if they're being pirated, or if we need to go ahead and break out our wallet on that. So from the alarms side of things, again, we've touched on this from a number of areas, but this provides you a really nice, again, a secondary dashboard centered around your alarms. These will, again, they could be sent out via email or into the ticketing system as well to be an actionable ticket. You can see, again, just a visual representation around when certain things have breached certain thresholds, and you can certainly pick how far back you want to look at all of these, and that will start to update your different alarms here. Now, from the from the reporting side of things, we're going to see a couple of very simple ways to do searches, if you will. You could just search by just a number of different attributes, or you can actually create something like, I want to see how much RAM, the user, and the IP address of all of my Windows, or maybe all the XPs that are out there that have Service Pack 2, and you can run that, and that's going to provide back that list and that information that you wanted to. Then you could sort it by RAM and start to make, cull this list or export it and do any sort of updates that you wanted to. But then we've also, go ahead, please.
Sorry to interrupt, but Charlotte and I have another demo to run too.
Oh, I didn't even see the time. Here I am just rambling away.
That's okay. This is great stuff. It's just I got to sit up downstairs.
Okay, so, no worries.
Yeah, Greg, you gonna stay on? Greg?
Yeah.
Greg? Yeah. So, Greg, you can stay on, but we got to go.
It's
okay.
Not a problem from my perspective. You're not going to miss much. This was right at the end, just to in the reports, so you're good to go.
Great. If you could send me a price quote, that would be great.
Absolutely, not a problem.
Thanks. See ya.
All right. See ya.
All right.
So I'll show you, Greg, a little bit of the kind of the reporting capabilities that we offer here, and then we'll show you how all of this works in the ticketing system. I think that's probably going to be one of the most attractive components to it all as well. But again, what you can do here is you can search across every table that we have in the system and every bit of information. So you can grab CPU data and against some age data. I want to know, run that across network cards and then operating system. And then you literally can just come in here and select the columns that are the most important for this particular report, and username, and then so on and so forth. And you can run that across the entire system. Of course, you can save this particular report. We've got saved reports out here, and you can run these at any point in time. Here's all computers where users are local admins. But what the beautiful thing is you can actually edit this. If you need to reverse engineer this particular report, you can certainly do that. So it's quite powerful. I mean, you literally can tap into every particular piece of data in the entire system itself. Now, from the administrative side of things, again, you can do all of your alert management, email addresses that you want alerts sent to, not a problem at all. And the different tasks that you can do with this system are quite nice. We can actually see right now we're doing a USB port block across a range of IPs. We successfully did this update to 71, unsuccessful to 7, and maybe there's 22%, maybe we're offline. We just haven't gotten there yet. So that those tasks are still pending out there for that. But some of the different tasks that you can do, you can just send a broadcast message if just simply just to say, hey, we know emails down, don't submit a ticket, whatever it may be. Send files, execute scripts. Again, there's that USB monitoring type settings. You can install software, uninstall software. You can uninstall it from the list. That's that whole kind of blacklisted type of thing. So you could say, you know what, every night run a task to uninstall blacklisted software. And Power Actions is quite nice. You can actually attempt to shut down all workstations at 6:30 at night or something to that effect. That saves on power savings. You'll probably pay for the system in less than a year just by attempting to shut down workstations at a certain point in time. And the other one last cool thing I wanted to show you in assets as well is you can actually segregate and look at your data through different lenses. So the topic, the name here is probably not as applicable to your organization, but for a particular department, you can actually click on it, and now the entire way I look through this system is filtered down to this particular department. You can see obviously these numbers went way down, and you can actually look at everything in the system, licensing and everything, just through the lens of that particular department. Another cool thing you can do as well is you can actually step back in time. I can go back and have a look at what the landscape of everything in my system looked like back August 7th, 2010. So if you need to do some reconciliation or auditing or anything to that effect, you can actually step back in time to see what your environment looked like back then. Now, from the ticketing side of things, I certainly want to show you how this all kind of comes into play. Let's get us logged in here. All right, so I'm just going to go out to a particular ticket. I'll show you a couple of ways where this can be beneficial. Actually, we haven't even seen how any of this gets associated. So when you're creating a ticket, I'm just going to create a ticket. And well, you know what? We'll do this. There's a couple of things I want to do. You get the phone in. It's Emma. Hi, it's Emma. Well, I can go into the ticketing system, of course. I can do a federated search. I find Emma. I click on her name. Now, there's a couple of things that are interesting from here. One is if we're just trying to do some phone resolution, I can actually, here's all of Emma's assets. Assets owned by Emma. Okay, she's got a handful of workstations. I can see she's got a printer, monitor, and IP phone there. But what I can do is I can click on details from here, and that's actually communicating out with InvGate assets, and it's providing me with all of that data that we saw there in assets without having to leave the ticket. So one thing that could happen when you're not doing massive reports across all of your assets or massive tasks or anything like that, basically this could actually just be more of like an engine running in the background for your troubleshooting and for the ticketing system. So now I've got that entire audit history of when that workstation first came online. If you remember when blacklisted software was removed, if you remember we added a gig of RAM and so on and so forth. All that information's right here in the ticket itself. I can see when it changed ownership and when it breached breached warranty and stuff like that. But the cool thing is I can start a remote desktop control session, RC session, straight out of the ticketing system itself. And you can do it straight out of a ticket itself. We'll see how you can associate it. I can see that there's 8 pieces of blacklisted software, 2 pieces of licensed software. I could block or unblock a USB port straight here from the ticketing system. I can see it's expired, so we ain't sending that one off. And I could send it into that repair status. Again, you want that audit trail for that kind of repair replace decision. But moreover, I can actually see all that hardware information that we saw out of the ticketing system, all of its RAM and which banks and everything, network information. Again, if you needed to grab the IP or the MAC address, got it. Software, I can see, again, all that software that's installed on here, and I can see what list it's associated to, whether it requires a license, and then I can see how frequently it's being used. Again, still from the ticketing system. We saw it before, but just as kind of proof how the hard drive's partitioned, how much free space, operating system details, so you can quickly see if they're on the right service pack or not. And then, as we saw earlier, its association with different assets, all that financial information, you can grab it straight out of here. I can see, when was it purchased? 8 years ago. I can click on 8 years ago, and it tells me the specific date and time, and any other financials. And then from the setup side here is where I can actually deploy MSI files if I needed to. So I can make those updates straight out of the ticketing system. And to kind of see how they're associated, if I was to create, I shouldn't have done that. Let me go back. Emma's still on the phone with me, and I need to create a ticket for her. I create a ticket for her. So it's created, and fault failure, hardware, PC, whatever it may be. You create that ticket, but then I get to see all of her assets on this while I'm creating this ticket, and now I can actually associate it with it. I can say link, and maybe it was a printer issue, boom, and I associate that printer with it. And now when we save this ticket, we've got that association between a ticket and the different assets themselves. We can kind of see that. I'll go out to my go-to ticket that I've got out here. It's got a lot of meat and moving parts to it. But we can actually see as I scroll down in this particular ticket, nothing strange, right? There's that dialogue that's going on in the ticket. This one's actually got other tickets associated with it. It's a parent ticket. But then I can see the assets that are associated with this particular ticket. And then, as we saw before, I can go into the details on this particular ticket and see all of that information. This one's in warranty. It's still got some forbidden software, and I can come in here and I could actually uninstall pieces of software straight out of the ticket. Haven't even left the ticket. So hopefully that was helpful, useful, and in line with kind of what you're looking for and covers many of your needs. Any questions before I let you go in peace on your Friday?
Yes, two questions. On the agent, how is the agent running? You need to know if it's running does it need a service account, or is it running as local system?
That's actually a really good question as well. Let's see. If I remember correctly, it is an MSI file itself, but I don't know if that really helps answer your question either. All right.
No, because if it's a service account and that service account needs admin credentials, then that service account lives on every workstation.
Mm-hmm.
So if our workstation gets hacked, then they can use that account to then move to every other. They pretty much own every computer at that point.
Right. I haven't heard any word about ever having to create a service account. It is literally goes out in a GPO for in the Active Directory, and it's just deployed. I know I've been on some remote sessions where it's been installed, and it's installed with the regular old user being logged in with their regular old account, and they just run that MSI, and the agent runs. So I am 99% confident that you do not. I'm more than that. There's been no word, no mention. Heck, the instructions are actually out here of how to actually deploy it, and I have heard nothing of having to have a service account. That makes sense now that you're say it. I try to know everything. I try to know a lot, but some things I'm only magazine certified on. But now that you mentioned service account, that makes more sense to me. I don't.
Yeah, if you could just verify that.
Yep.
Yeah, because if you're able to install and uninstall software, I would like to know the details, the in the weeds details of that communication.
Right. Absolutely. That makes a ton of sense. Basically, from my limited knowledge of kind of behind the scenes of how it does, it's going to be it's going to be using WMI. It's going to be basically approaching it from the perspective of using add remove program is basically what we're tapping into. So
Okay.
for an example, a limitation is if you've got some wonky software on there that has its own special uninstaller, and it can't be removed from add remove programs, we can't do it.
Right.
Because we're utilizing the service, I guess, or I'm going to speak incorrectly there, but the add remove programs service.
Okay. And then the same question kind of goes around the remote desktop functionality. I would like to know the details of that communication.
Ultimately, it's VNC. We've packaged around it with our own proprietary and security around it, but ultimately the protocol is VNC.
Okay.
It runs within a browser, and it runs. It is not peer-to-peer. It runs through the server.
Okay. And then so would the end user, the help desk technician that's running that remote desktop, would it be running as their credentials as an administrator?
That one I'll have to deflect.
Okay.
So the technician, right?
Yep. And if it does, if you could find out if the technician could use a local admin account, not their domain admin account. So the PC.
Well,
so what we do is every PC has a unique local admin account with a unique password.
Now, again, a lot of different deployments go different ways. This is going to only be, and I might speak out of play here, but we're not going to log into the host person's machine. We're just requesting the remote control, the mouse keyboard control.
Okay.
Does that change anything? Because I'm not sure if.
No, you just have to find out what account is it running under. Is it running under the person that's logged in, the help desk tech, a service account, right?
Gotcha. Local admin versus what was the other name? Sorry.
A domain or an Active Directory admin account.
Gotcha.
So those are a couple security concerns, but other than that, it looks really good.
That's amazing. Excellent. Glad to hear. And the solution is on premise, which is going to be a good thing for you. So you don't have any wonky out in the cloud jazz.
Right.
Okay, let me just.
Does it require its own server, or does it run on the service desk server?
It can run separately, or it can run on the same server. It won't matter. It is its own. It is its own unique application. It can stand alone by itself. So, but you can certainly put it on the same server. You could have an app server and then have the DB on a DB server. That style arrangement is just fine as well.
Okay. And then another security question just popped into my mind.
Absolutely.
How does it do all the reporting between the server and the agents? Like how is that communication? Is it secured? Is it some kind of HTTPS traffic?
Sure, and I probably should know the answer to that one, and I don't. Again, it kind of falls into my magic category. But the agent itself reports back to the server. Okay, they communicate back and forth. This may help. I'm going to grab a quick document here. Assets.
Yeah, so you just write down the question to find out from the developers.
Yeah,
is
for
the
sure.
agent pushing the information to the server, or is the server pulling it? And is there any authentication? And what's the security of that communication?
I know that there's some two-way communication. It depends on the scenario, right? The agent reports back. It does not get polled. The agent actually reports back. But then when a task is required, such as I want to remotely uninstall something, that is pushed as a task from the server out to the agent. But let's see. Here's a little bit more that may actually help. That may or may not. I don't know, because just because a port is defined doesn't mean it's always a secure port. So let me do that. I'll find out um, agent comms, agent communication.
Yeah, and whatever documentation you can send would be great.
Okay. And it may be sitting out there in our knowledge base, and I'm just have stayed too busy to grab it. Again, you guys have to look at it from a different approach. I mean, it's you're looking at all of this through a completely different lens than DeKalb County High School. They're not too terribly concerned about this stuff, or the local mega church or whatever. So.
Oh yeah, we understand this is in the weeds, but these are questions we have to ask every vendor.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, bear with me on some of that, just because it's a little bit outside of my wheelhouse, but we'll get the information. If I don't ask the question correctly, just let me know too, right? We'll just re-ask it correctly. Not a problem at all.
Absolutely.
Excellent, excellent. All right. Well, listen, I really appreciate the time. I'll tell you what, I have recorded this if you want me to send you the link to it. It may take a little bit for Google to make sure it's legit, but it's certainly there if you want, especially maybe available for Julia to see that little end piece in her team there, to see the piece that they missed. So I'll fire that over to you. Yeah. And then again, you can review areas that might have been a bit of a blur when your eyes rolled back. I know this stuff's not the most compelling and exciting stuff, but so we'll have that recording for you to review.
Okay, great.
Awesome. Greg, man, truly appreciate the time, and we'll get that information back to you. I hope to pick it up today. Honestly, it's Friday. I'll light some fires under some people and see if I can get it back. But we'll have it very, very soon.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Terry.
Amazing. Appreciate the time. Have a good weekend. Okay.
All right, you do the same.
Cheers, Greg.
All right.
Bye bye.